question. Other question. He's already on problem 3, huh? He had his hands like this. That's so sweet. Any other questions?
For 1B, are you looking for like 2 different answers, one for the lower frequency and one for the higher frequency, or am I misunderstanding the question?
Yes, it's a range.
Okay.
Lower and upper. Lower and upper. It says lower and upper frequencies. So for each answer, you give me 2. You give me a, say, F1 to F2. Okay. Other problem 4? Is there a problem 4? Oh, there is. Anybody get problem 4? All right, then let's go on. Move ahead. Fall back. By the way, you do know what that refers to, don't you?
No, that's what I was going to ask.
Do you ever listen to news, you people, or are you solely preoccupied on your smartphones?
That's where I get my news.
They just found a knife. Potentially the knife. Or this man needs to be taken in the back room and informed. All right. What I want to do is a little more motivation.
Well, okay, now you can run for the
Yeah. I'll have to look into it.
All right. This I haven't posted it.
It is Friday. Here's Friday.
I haven't posted it yet, but I decided to go to the website and pick out a few FRF type examples to give you a better idea of what FRF. This one is how to read the microphone frequency response chart. Okay, and this is how they actually create the chart. That, as I talked with someone after class, I used to work in a lab like that. It's called an anechoic chamber. And the idea behind it is if you have a sound source and it emanates out, it never comes back. There is no reflection. So you don't have reverberation. You also have reverberation room. So you take a speaker, you want to calibrate it, you put a microphone in front of the speaker, or you want to calibrate a mic. This is calibrating the mic. So this is a Shure 57. Anybody do any music? Anybody work with microphones? Shure is still top of the line. Yeah, it is. And so this microphone is a 57, and if you read, what's its bandwidth? Let's look at the bandwidth, because that was a question on bandwidth. What's the bandwidth of this mic? So you go to the central range where it's supposed to be used in, which is here, and you say, okay, and that's roughly around 0 dB. They just normalize it to 0. And then you go down 3 dB here, because it never goes above. You go down 3 dB, and so it's a little above 100 hertz. That's the lower end. And you can use it in 3. Why 3 dB? It's just standard that people use. Seems to work, pretty close to the way it's supposed to if you're within 3 dB of this band, so that's why they chose it. So this is the lower end. What's the upper end? Remember, the useful range of a sensor, like a microphone, is when the amplification is within 3 dB of what you want it to be. And this is where you want to be. You want the microphone to pick up and record what you're singing or playing. You don't want it attenuated, but you also don't want it amplified. So the upper 3 dB range would be up here, not down here. Controls people usually are kind of weird on this. When I was at Purdue, I had many discussions with controls people. And they're like, oh, no, Peter, it's the minus 3 dB. And I said, all right, fine, go ahead and use that microphone up here. And when you hear the hi-hats crunching your ears because they are amplifying the high frequencies by as much as 5 to 10 dB, then come back and talk to me about how great your recording is. It isn't. So, again, there's different definitions of bandwidth. The bandwidth definition I like to use is when you're within a plus or minus 3 dB band of the working range. So this one is for instruments, and in particular, it's especially good for snare drums. Okay? Why is it good for snare drums? Well, because the fundamental frequency of a snare is about 150 to 250 hertz. And if you look at this thing, at 150 to 250, you're right in the working bandwidth. You're right here. You're at the low end, but that's okay. You're here. And if you have the kick drum, which is low frequency, and you want to mic the snare, this isn't going to pick up the kick. It's going to attenuate the kick. Right? So that's why you have different microphones for different instruments, because they are designed to pick up those instruments and reject other instruments which have their own mics. So that's for snare drums. And then you go to the 58, which is more for vocals and other ones, similar types of. It's the most popular one for vocals in general. There are much better mics than Shure's. Okay. Now, what are these dotted lines? Anybody ever listened? I know this is really dating. Elvis Presley? Says Elvis's grandson. Anybody? You know that now Elvis actually got this from Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra was a wizard at using the microphone to modify his voice, to give it a deep kind of more full voice. He didn't have a deep voice, but when you put the microphone very close to your mouth and you sing into it, you get what's called reactance in the mic, and it actually amplifies the low frequency. So this is depending on if you're sufficiently far enough away, a couple inches or more, 2 feet or more away, you get none of that reactance. But if you put your mouth very close, within an 1/8 inch of that mic, at frequencies around, in the human voice, 100 to 200 hertz, you get about 10 decibels of amplification. You sound really. So that's why it's a very popular mic for vocals. So that's one example of different frequency domain or frequency response functions. Here's another one. It has to do with accelerometers. What? Open. How about I just click in? All right, I'll open it. Oh, it's a PDF, that's why.